Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 134 of the Peak of Serenity podcast, continuing to slowly climb towards the big 200. Uh,
Sure.
joining me, I am one of your hosts, emallson, and joining me, as always, we have my co host, Anomoly.
Hello.
And this week, there's not very much happening.
Yeah, nothing. You could say in terms of like actual in-game stuff. Um,
It is
uh,
It is that kind of pre-expansion lull. We have not gotten the rest of pre-patch yet, which is, of course, Evokers and the pre-patch event.
mm-hmm.
We also did not get a whole lot of changes on beta. There was some raid testing, but it was really like retesting bosses that already existed with some slight tweaks. And honestly, we'll get to it, but it's probably more for tuning stuff than anything else.
Yep.
So it's been a quiet week. We're gonna catch up a little bit on some of the stuff that has changed on beta, and then hit a couple of the actual bigger changes in some more detail. But before we get into that, and how was your raid week?
It was good. We are down to one night a week. From
Okay.
now until till the expansion launches, or really till the first week of Mythic and Heroic. So yeah, we're only raiding. I guess the next 2 weeks is on Tuesday, and then we'll see. Probably Tuesday the rest of the time. And it's not. It's fine. We cleared. I think we cleared Jailer in an hour.
Nice. Like
On
all the way
Tuesday.
to jailer and also jailer.
Yeah, so we did well the skip. So like
Yeah,
Guardian,
yeah, yeah.
Anduin, Lords, yeah, not the full raid, but yeah, everything Jailer down at like 9:10. And we
Yeah.
started 8 at 8, so about an hour, 10 minutes, which is awesome. And then we went and did a handful of Nathria bosses that one of our raiders needed for the meta achievement that he had
Yep.
missed. So did not kill Sylvanas. We didn't have any buyers, and no one needs the mount. And the only bosses that our folks need in Sepulcher are like Painsmith and
Right.
Fate Scribe.
Yeah.
It's like it was like already like 10 o'clock, and we're like, do we really want to go any further? Even though it's only
Yeah.
2 hours in, we're like, we'll take a shorter raid just to be a little bit
Yeah.
more chill.
Yeah.
Um, and focus on those. But yeah, it was third affix this week, which is the big change. Um,
Yeah.
they added a third affix, which it just, I mean, I it was just stupid. Like we killed Jailer in under 6 minutes, I think. Like we had like a 5:30 kill or
Yeah,
5:40 kill.
that's
Like
around where
just
our jailer actually had really good fixes this week, didn't he? Or I actually
uh
think we only did barrier.
yeah, he
We
had
didn't do
uh
moats.
yeah, I don't think he had mo. Did he have? I
The
forget.
three affixes for jailer this week, if I remember correctly, were barrier, then interrupts, then moats. So if you got
Yeah,
moats, you had to do interrupts.
gotcha. Yeah, I think we did all three. I think we didn't turn them off at all. There was lots of dispelling, which I was not a fun. Not
Yeah,
I hate soaks,
yeah,
but
yeah,
no, it was the third FX was fun. It was yeah, I think we killed Stone Legion generals in like 4 minutes or something.
yeah.
Like literally would. I think we didn't kill the first Goliath in either phase until the intermission. So
Oh,
like we
that
basically had
we had been doing that. That's been our season four strat. Is just you
oh
carry both
really?
Goliaths, and it's so good. So they
We
did on Stone Legion
sorry.
Generals. They fixed the bop thing that you could do, where you would like bop
Yep.
somebody and they would run in over and over again. So if you were using that, that was the easiest way to get through it. You would just like kill the Goliaths during the phase one and phase two kind of thing, and then not have them up during the intermission, and just like
Hmm.
bop somebody and have them run into it again. Um, we didn't really do that, so we just carried both the Goliaths into the intermission, killed all three of them, and then one commando, and then just dunked it all, and used the bop trick as like a backup plan in case one of the orbs got missed.
Gotcha. Yeah, we'd been mostly doing the bop trick. So we had the first intermission we carried the first Goliath in just because we killed first intermission so fast. But second, we'd kill the first Goliath and then carry the second one in just because we didn't kill the boss fast enough in second, like the second one that comes down. So the Goliath would just be one shotting people during their whatever
Yeah,
feast or their jump move. So
yeah. So
um
our strat for it is everyone just hits their CDs on pull, right? And then we
yeah.
bloodlust the second phase
Oh, okay, okay,
because you're not
okay.
getting two anyway. But then that lets you
Yeah.
get into the second intermission with both Goliaths up from phase 2
Yeah.
without it being one shot material yet.
Hmm. Yeah. That's a good idea. But yeah, no, it was interesting to go back. It'll probably be the last time I ever do Nathria because yeah, Pizza's like the last person who needs anything from or needs any of the kills from Nathria. We didn't need a Sire kill, which was nice. So we basically stopped at Stone Legion, but now we have a lockout at Sire. If we really want to sell it, I don't know why we would, um, but no, yeah, it was a really easy raid week. I mean, it's what there's like 4 more weeks left, 3 more weeks left of actually
Yeah.
doing this stuff. Like it's
Yeah.
just, I think at this point we I think we have one more Jailer mount. We're done Sylvanas mounts, and then we have, like I said, a handful of meta achievements in Sepulcher to do, or sorry, in Sanctum to do.
Yeah.
So we'll do those probably this week and be done. So
Yeah. Funny enough, Sanctum is also our big, like, we need boss kills for the meta achievement, right?
yeah,
And maybe it's just because the skip exists and the skip is so good for that, so just a lot of people haven't done intervening bosses.
yeah. We didn't. I mean, we didn't do the lower half like the first two, I think, cycles of it.
Yeah.
Because we were still farming Jailer mounts
Yeah.
at the time. So like we basically killed Sylvanas and then or tried to kill Sylvanas, did like the top half, and then went to do Jailer mounts. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So for us, I guess kind of like last Sunday, we got our first Fated Jailer kill, which is a little bit like bittersweet because it should have been our first, but it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then we went and spent more time on Denathrius. We have a Castle Nathria lockout at Denathrius that we've just been reusing because else.
Yeah.
One person needs Kael'thas, one person needs Council of Blood, both of which are still alive in our lockout, actually. I don't think we're doing them tonight. Um, so it's just Denathrius that people need. And we actually got through Jailer pretty quickly. It was very nice. Or, the whole, like, Vigilant, Anduin, all the rest, like,
Yeah.
doing the skip. And then went and spent time on Denathrius and just, like, I don't know. We kept falling apart in phase 3.
Yeah.
Or
The
like
movement. Yeah.
at the beginning of phase 2 or at phase 3. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was like where we were hyping. But then on Friday, we went in, we killed it in 4 pulls.
Oh, very cool. Very
And
awesome.
then we went and we did Jailer mounts again. And so we got through all of that. And we had like an hour and a half left in raid.
Oh Jesus, that's awesome.
That was really, really nice. So at that point we went, and what we're doing is we're doing a full clear of Sepulcher to finish off people's meta achievements for that.
Hmm.
Then we're going to go to Sanctum and work on people's meta achievements for that. We have to do
Gotcha.
one more Denathrius kill for the remaining like 5 people that weren't in comp for our Denathrius kill this week
Hmm.
to go and get it next week. So that's kind of like the plan for next week is Jailer mounts and Denathrius stuff. But honestly, like we're pretty close to having our meta achievements all like knocked out. Like
That's awesome.
everything that's left. I have a spreadsheet. Everything that's left in
Yeah,
Sepulcher. Everything
I
that's
made one for my team too.
uh, everything that's left in Sepulcher gets knocked out either this week, with just doing the like we have Descent, Pantheon, and Lie of them left. We go and do those tonight. No big
Yeah.
deal. And then next week we do Lords and Jailer and knock out the rest. And then we have to go back and do a lot in Sanctum. Actually, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like Sanctum is just wild compared to everything else.
That's funny.
And then Castle Nathria is like mostly don't need anything. I actually think I made it. I think this guy has Daenerys, but like pretty much we
Yeah.
knock out the rest on our next Castle Nathria clear,
Oh, nice.
and that's it. And actually, there's a pretty solid chance that I will end up getting the meta despite re-rolling back the monk.
Yeah.
I'll get the Sepulcher one tonight because we're finishing our full clear of that. I don't know if we're gonna get all the way through Sanctum. I hope we do, but also it's 10 bosses and a lot of trash. A lot
Yeah.
of trash.
Yeah. Sanctum is a very big raid. So
Um,
no, it's
yeah.
That's funny. I also made a spreadsheet because I was the one like I don't know if our raid leaders weren't doing it. I was just annoyed about not knowing what we needed to do. So I went through and built my own spreadsheet too to track all that. So
Yeah.
luckily most of ours were like end boss kills. I think we had
Yeah, and bot
um
skills are the big thing for us too.
yeah. So
Yeah.
um well cool. Well awesome. Sounds like you got a plan for the raid. So you're still raiding your 2 nights a week still. So you're doing your still your Friday, Sunday stuff.
Tentatively until we get, so we still need, I think we need 2 more jailer kills to get the rest of our mounts. It's like we need
Oh,
like
okay.
3 mounts, so we could
Gotcha.
technically
Yeah.
like try to sell one, but
Yeah.
yeah. Um and I think we're done with Sylvanas mounts. Uh and so the rest is just like getting portals. So I think we're planning to actually like go through and get portals for
Gotcha.
people. But besides that, what I think the goal is we get a lot of our portal progress done this week and next week, and then
Mhm.
the remaining 2 weeks, we do like one night and just do jailer kills.
Yeah. That'd be cool. That'd be cool. Awesome. Awesome. Well, yeah, ratings slowly wind down in Shadowlands. We'll talk. I think
Yeah,
that's gonna be our plan. I think over the next couple weeks is we'll do little retrospective episodes on each tier, what we liked, what we didn't like, and try and remember because it's been like while this has been a fairly quick expansion, it feels like it's lasted forever. Um,
has it though? Like I was looking at people's Denathria's kills, and they are from like spring and early summer 2021.
yeah, which isn't that long ago.
But
Like
okay, so
18
Castle
months ago.
Nathria released, right? Castle Nathria, actually, that's not even right. It's April 2021 is like Sanctum release.
Yeah.
Because,
Like right before.
right? Because, like, Castle Nathria released in December 2020.
Yeah.
Vault is releasing. This actually is one of the first times that without having an
Two.
insane content drought, they have actually done an expansion in 2 years. And it is
Which is
primarily because they
crazy.
skipped, 9.3.
Yeah.
That presumably would have existed. But,
Yeah.
you know,
Which is funny. Which is funny. But yeah, no, they nailed it finally. But yeah, we'll do I think the next couple episodes do like a quick little retrospective on how we thought about those fun 3 tiers we've been through.
yes,
Um
yes.
Well, cool. I guess we'll do a little bit of recap of last week, and then, like you said, we'll get into some of the bigger changes on beta this week. Talk through some of those. So, a couple of quick hitters, as I like to say. We had a bunch of tweets and a couple of posts, and then a live stream by Preach. And so, if you guys don't know who Preach is, he's a very old school WoW content creator. Basically, last year sort of stepped away from creating content specifically for WoW, focused more on MMOs in general, a lot of Final Fantasy stuff. But he's back and sort of he put out a couple of tweets that he was at Blizzard campus, and then he did a live stream after his trip out there because he's from England, and did a live stream about what he was doing. And so the live stream's about 4 or 5 hours long. I mean, you can watch it all if you want, but the gist of what he said is that he had reached out to Blizzard about doing a series of interviews, not just one interview, not just sort of the typical media like release, like expansion release coming up. Let's do like an interview and talk about a couple of fluff questions and go through it. So
Right.
he sort of said like, I wanted to sit down and actually, interview folks, like speak with them, spend some time in and around the team, learn some stuff. And so he's got a bunch of interviews queued up. I think he said he talked to like almost like 20 plus people while he was there. In various things, focused mostly on WoW, did touch a little bit on classic WoW, and I think ancillary some of the other teams. But most of this will be about WoW. And yeah, he didn't release any interviews yet, but it'll be interesting to see what he actually talked about. Because the I guess the guiding or the main thread that I got from sort of watching his live stream recap of like what he did there to do was that like a lot of people at Blizzard are talking about Dragonflight starting essentially like the third era of WoW, which is like a weird descriptor, but like I get where they're coming from, which is
Yeah.
like the first era was essentially probably everything you could consider everything up until like Wrath as like era one, and everything from like Kata to now is like era two. Maybe
It
maybe
depends on
Kata falls in era one and MLP
I
is era two because of talents.
I actually kind of
So
I think it depends on how you break it down, right? Because if
yeah,
you, I think the most significant thing is actually borrowed power, right?
which is
And
very
that's
much a Legion
Legion,
thing.
right? That's
Yeah,
like Legion BFA Shadowlands. So you could argue that the first era is like, vanilla through WAD.
which seems weird to me considering the talent and like class reworks that happened with
Right,
MOP. That like
right.
you almost take that rework and borrowed power, stick them together as era two, and then like this new.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah, I could see that.
semantically, it is what it is. But they talked about this being like a generally Preach's point of view is that there's like a design shift in how they look at WoW, starting with Dragonflight and moving forward.
Yeah,
And it talks very much about something I think we've mentioned, which is that most expansions seem like self-contained things.
right.
Like the story, everything that you do inside of them are only meant for that expansion, and there's a huge amount of stuff that gets left behind every
Yeah,
time we move forward. Like almost to release of expansion, Blizzard thinks everything has to be brand new.
right.
And they talked a little bit about this, like in Preach said, mentioned some of this in the video, talking a little bit about like expeditions and war fronts and islands, right? Which are major features of those expansions. A lot
Those,
of them fell flat.
yeah, those are like box features of BFA too, right?
Yeah. And fell sort of flat. But the thing is the tech from a lot of that is reused elsewhere. Like I think they mentioned like a lot of Torghast is built on top of what they did, like what
Right.
they previously had built for things like that. So but sometimes players don't put two and two together. In any event, excited to see these, I guess would be the idea. Sort of
Yeah,
an announcement before the announcement, but it seems like Preach is has got a bunch of like content lined up to start releasing and a lot of interviews. So
yeah,
if you like Blizzard stuff, it seems like it'd be cool. I personally think Preach is a pretty good creator in general. Like I used to watch a lot of his stuff, like
yeah.
when he did do WoW things. So I mean, I'm excited just based on that. But yeah, we'll see.
If you
Hopefully
haven't,
the sorry.
if you haven't watched some of his early like videos on Final Fantasy and comparing and contrasting with WoW, I think they're very good and insightful videos. Are
Mhm.
worth going and looking at. Um, yeah, I think Dragonflight is going to be very interesting. I'm curious what these interviews are going to look like.
Yeah,
Uh,
so am I.
it's going to be a very interesting expansion.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And very like I was actually doing I did a couple of leveling runs over the past like 3 weeks. Once you hit max, there's like not that there's not a lot to do, but there's not a like looming bar to fill, I'll say, which
Yeah,
is like the it'll be interesting to see how I play it because I'm very much a fill up bar type player. So
yeah. I
um
mean, that's one of the most exciting things for me, right? Like, I'm the kind
yeah.
of person that has my experience bar turned off.
Oh no, not me. Oh god. I would have
Like,
anxiety, dude.
when I'm leveling, I turn my experience bar off and I just go. Which I have to figure out how to do that in the new UI because it doesn't let you. It's not one of the editable
Yeah.
things in the new UI. So I gotta figure out how I'm doing that. But I am going to be turning the experience bar off, leveling in Dragonflight, just because I don't know. The bar being there is like constantly distracting.
Yeah.
It's like the watched pot never boils kind of thing, where
That's
like
true.
because
Yeah.
the bar is there, I'm like watching it and seeing it tick up at little bits, and it's just too slow.
That's the best part. Everything you do, the bar, like you can see it just move a little bit further, a little bit further. So,
Yeah,
oh, that's awesome. But yeah, no. So hopefully, or not hopefully, but these interviews should. I don't know. I don't remember. So I did watch the whole his release live stream. Don't remember exactly if or when he said these were released, but I think we both sort of figured probably sometime
yeah,
between BFA or before BFA launch. So be on the lookout for those. We'll probably talk about them to be completely honest with you once they start going up. So,
yeah, yeah,
um, so cool. So then next up in news is WowUp, the add-on manager for World of Warcraft that many people love and enjoy. Released a large new I guess update this week with curse integration included. Which, if you remember a lot of the WoW add-on manager issues, Curse Forge, which is probably the largest add-on repository for World of Warcraft add-ons, was purchased by Overwolf,
yeah,
and Overwolf made a couple of API changes and basically broke every third-party add-on manager.
Yeah.
For quick and dirty, just broke them. And so now, and Overwolf has their own add-on manager. Some people don't like it. It's a little weird. But yeah, so WowUp now allows you to is officially supported, I guess for now, supports CurseForge. As long as you have ads enabled on the WowUp interface.
Slight caveat: there's actually a second application for WowUp with CurseForge
Oh yeah, yeah.
support. So right now, there's actually two different versions of it. One that has Wago support and one that has CurseForge support, which is kind of like, eh. But at the same time, like one of the reasons this is happening is that in the aftermath of the Overwolf acquisition, there was a big shift towards people kind of double listing their add-ons. They would put them up on Wago and they would put them up on CurseForge.
Hmm.
So like the monopoly that CurseForge had before it was acquired by Overwolf in a, unsurprising twist was not actually a monopoly. It was just kind of a monopoly of convenience, not actual
Right.
like market capture. It was just convenient to use CurseForge. And as soon as it stopped, you know, not that hard to upload your add-on in two places.
Exactly. Exactly. So, um, so yeah. So I mean, I guess good news if you still want to use WowUp now to update your CurseForge add-ons. Sucks if you need to update Wago add-ons. You can, I think they said you can run both side by side, so both
Yeah.
versions of WowUp can be run side by side, but doesn't mean you need two to do it. I immediately uninstalled CurseForge and installed WowUp. I'll tell you.
Yeah,
I hate
I'm
that.
I'm really tempted to because the CurseForge one is actually really slow to let you actually update add-ons on a
Do you want
fresh
to know
start.
why?
I
Do
heard
you want
about
to
the
know?
ad thing. I heard about the ad
Yeah.
thing. I'm not totally convinced. I think it actually is related to like sometimes the ad, like it doesn't let you until the ad actually finishes loading, but sometimes my ad just never loads. But I found that if you switch tabs in it and then switch back, it'll just let you do it. So I think it's actually I
Oh,
don't
okay.
I suspect it's not actually like I think it is intentional that like requires the ad to load. Um
Right.
but
But it doesn't have a timeout
I
on
don't think
that.
it actually has a timeout.
Yeah.
I think it's
Which
just a bug that sometimes the ad never loads and therefore you can't actually update because I've had it like sit there for like 10 minutes before. That's not
oh
waiting for
yeah.
an ad to play.
No, no, no. Yeah, that's true. That is true. So,
Uh, so
but yeah,
the thing going around, I guess for context, so people actually know what I'm talking about, is there's this thing going around that like it waits for the first ad to finish playing before it lets you hit the update button. Um, I think a lot of it is actually that it waits for the ads to load and the code is just
yeah,
because
yeah.
like
Because
sometimes
the
the
ad
ad
load can
doesn't
hit.
load or it loads but never actually lets you hit update. I think it's just broken.
Yeah,
Like this is one of those like never attribute to malice what can be explained by incompetence. I think the code's just broken.
yeah. That would make better sense. Because typically when it hangs for me, it is the fact that the ad just never shows up, and so
Yeah.
it's just like. And sorry, just so people are aware, this is the CurseForge
This is the
updater,
curse word one. Yes.
not
Yes.
WowUp. Yeah. Um,
Um. Yeah.
but yeah. So WowUp works now with CurseForge, which is great. If you want to use WowUp, you can. In an official, at least they said the note that I read was pretty, or the release was pretty funny. Is that it's basically like it works for now. We don't know how long it's going to work for, but they're letting us use it for now. It seems like not a very, I guess, good, not good part. Maybe that's the wrong word, but it's not a very like tight partnership. We'll say, or like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Um, Interesting. In I guess moving forward from there, a couple other pre-patch things is the second chapter of Dragonflight Legacies was released. This is, of course, Blizzard always does this. It's like a bunch of short videos, in sort of a very, in this case, a very interesting art style. I really like it. But typically, it's like a hand drawn type thing. They did this all the way starting back in WoD, and they've done it for basically every expansion since
Right.
to introduce like the characters and the story. Chapter 2 of Legacy, Dragonflight Legacies came out. Um, Talks a little bit about Nose Dormo and the dragon aspects and their betrayal by Natharian, or yeah, Neltharian. I always mess up his name. Um, it's amazing. They literally like give me a TV series in this art style about this same stuff, and I will pay Netflix any amount of money they want to watch it. Like,
You won't.
huge fan. I maybe not any amount of money, but I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah,
should in my mind, this is sort of like Blizzard, like taking this exact art style and doing something like Riot did with Arcane. Like, so if you guys don't know,
yes,
Arcane is
yes,
essentially League of Legends lore, but in an anime or like in like a story, like a long form, like episodic TV show format. And yeah, so like Riot did that with Arcane. Honestly, I cannot speak highly enough of watching that. Even if you know nothing about League of Legends, which I don't
yeah,
play it, it's
yeah,
still like art style is great. Like music is amazing.
yeah.
The story is cool.
You don't need like as somebody that played a ton of League back in the day. They have like they are honestly possibly just straight up worse than Blizzard when it comes to retconning their own lore. So none of it has anything to do like the names are the same, but the places are not, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
so the it has very little to do with like the old lore that was present when I played like 5 years ago, right? So yeah, it's Arcane is worth a watch. These legacy shorts are also worth a watch. And I actually have to say I have not watched either. What is having issues. Anyway, moving on. They have done a couple more pieces of testing this week. Um, they've got the pre-patch event is being retested. I have actually heard.
Sorry.
Oh, welcome back.
Sorry, my audio drivers crashed in the middle there.
Ah,
I'm back. My fault.
yeah. Um, yeah. So they've had more pre-patch event testing this week.
Yes.
I've heard
Uh,
literally nothing about it.
I've done it.
Yeah,
Uh,
same
I've not.
feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done the dungeon yet. From my
Okay.
understanding, dungeon is literally just generally Uldaman,
Oh
scaled up. Um,
no,
so
absolutely. Having
yeah.
having
I've
done Uldaman in the not too distant past, um, the new dungeon has like it's obviously the same setting, right?
mhm,
But like where the old Uldaman was this huge sprawling labyrinth thing, like all of the old classic dungeons were.
yeah.
Um, this was a lot more of modern dungeon. It's kind of like the change from the old Dead Mines to whatever was it? I that redid the Dead Mines or Bob? Kata.
I think it was
It was
Kata.
Kata.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the difference between Kata Dead Mines and the original Dead.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've not done that part. I did the event. It's I mean, it's like invasions. It's just
It's Legion
you go
Invasions, but with
yeah, you go to a
elementals.
place, yeah, you kill elementals, they fill up a bar, you kill a boss,
Yeah,
you get a currency that you can then turn in to get 272 gear, or like 252, somewhere in there, like between
yeah.
252,
It's 252
272.
last I checked.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Um,
below normal faded gear.
yeah. Which if you have any alts that you haven't taken into raids yet, it's a nice catch up. Like I'll use it on my druid who I
Yeah,
just hit 60 like a week or two ago. I'll do that. I'll sort of just waiting to do that on that. And then probably for my evoker, which I will try and level before pre-patch. Sorry, before release. Do some of that there. But yeah, it's super big. I mean, I think the big thing with pre-patch now is going to be like you can now level evokers, and that'll
yeah.
be fun.
That I think is going to be
And
the bigger thing. They start at level
yeah,
58, right? So you just do like the evoker starting
correct.
area, and then you're 60, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you can jump right in. So it's not too bad. Um, with that stuff. So um, cool. Yeah, pre-patch. This pre-patch I feel is just generally weak. Just feels weaker. Although to be completely honest with you, I don't remember the Shadowlands pre-patch. So
It, there like wasn't anything.
okay, cool. So the same.
It
Um,
was even lighter than this though. Like I genuinely I think there was like a scourge invasion kind of thing, but I completely missed that it happened.
oh, interesting. Did not realize that. Um,
Exactly, right? Like at least you probably notice um
the invasions, because yeah.
oh, Nathanos. You remember Nathanos and like he dropped a bag in Eastern
Oh, right.
Plaguelands.
You had to kill him, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I do remember that. That's it. Yeah, it's boring. Um, it's pre-patch. I think the big thing will be Evokers come out, which will be what everybody's sort of focused on.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
For sure.
so cool. So next up in last week's stuff, they have animated the login screen for Dragonflight, which is I don't know. I think all the login screens are sort of iconic, and this one's kind of I don't know about iconic, but it's cool. The login screen itself is the city Val Draken. So it's sort of
Yep.
an outside shot of it shooting up from it. And now with the animation, you'll see Alex Straza sort of fly in, perch on one of the tall spire things, and then she leaps off that a couple seconds later and sort of flies in front of the camera. And, like the clouds are moving now, like around the city. There's a couple of like you can see smaller. I think they're probably like Drakthir things flying in the distance. They almost look like ants or gnats on your screen.
Yeah.
They're pretty
It
tiny.
already had like the
Um,
animated water and stuff. So they've added a bunch more
yeah,
detail to it, which actually makes me really curious if we're going to see further updates. Like, are we going to see with like another major patch or even further in the pre-patch, are we going to see
yeah,
it like get a black dragon and a blue dragon and all of that?
maybe.
Or is it just going to be because there's three more pillars,
It's true.
which is Alex Strauss like comes in and perches on one of the pillars, and there's or one of the platforms, and there's other platforms.
Yeah, maybe they'll sort of as the story changes or as
Yeah,
that's something they've never really done is they haven't really changed the login screen
yeah,
mid expansion, right? It's always been at launch, so that'd be interesting. Be interesting.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, they updated it. Looks cool. I don't know. Like can't ever say enough about Blizzard's art team. So kill it
yeah.
every expansion, like regardless. I think that's probably one of their biggest strong suits. So um, the other thing that sort of came from beta is there was data mining of a couple of account wide unlock achievements, particularly
Mm,
around Renowned. So Renown's, if you guys aren't aware, Renown is coming back. It's really just a different way to say reputation for the four. I think there's four or five major reputations in Dragonflight 4, I believe. And so now, as you sort of level up with them, you gain renown levels, similar to covenant levels. But what they've added is two new achievements or two new sort of perks when you reach level 10, and then again when you reach level 20. Um, with a reputation. You then increase the reputation or renown gains for your other characters on that same account below that level. So if you reach level 10 on one character, every other character gains 100% increased renown gain with that same faction below level 10. And then when we reach rank 20, they'll get 200% increased. Or sorry, 100% between 11 and 20, and then 200% below level 10 and below. So
yeah.
nice little catch up for your alts here.
One
As
of
your
the
main
most
character
like
sort of pushes through.
persistent requests has been account-wide reputations, or at least something to like help catch up on alts with reputations. And this is that. Like it's called renowned, but that's more of because they are looking to supplant the old reputation system with something that is more like renown. And
Hmm.
we've talked about this before on the show, but the TLDR is that reputation both gains and rewards are very like you have to go and find a vendor and know what you get from reputation.
Yeah,
The renown stuff, it just like has a UI that tells you what you get from it or what you
yeah, which
can get from it. Like maybe it tells you where a vendor you've unlocked, right?
yeah, it's much more front and center.
So
Um,
yeah, but this is good.
yeah, it's a nice catch up thing that they're keeping in the game. I think that's the one thing that maybe Blizzard is realizing, and it's funny. It's this might be a I don't want to read too much into this, right? But if you've been around, particularly Ian enough, the game director, he's very much a single character type player in
Hmm.
terms of like his play style. At least what I know of him, right? And like I think that's been a lot of his, maybe not his direct direction, but like with him leading this team now, the idea of like doing everything within one character, raising that power of one character is maybe that's starting to like that like that design direction is seems to be weakening in Dragonflight, and it's much more a like you play an account, like you play the game however you want. You can, if you want to play multiple characters, you can, and we won't let you like play not, I guess not as go as far as like the one like the job system in Final Fantasy, right?
Right.
But like put enough catch up mechanics around. If you want to play an alt, you're not months behind. You might be like a week or two behind, like your
Yeah.
main character. So
Yeah, the Renown
um
catch-up is very good.
yeah.
For that, and it has a balance between like not letting your alts just instantly be at the level that your main is, but
Hmm.
also making it, a lot easier to catch up on it. And
Exactly.
in combination with the lack of anything like artifact power, um, it will be a lot easier to keep up a second character. Like, if you look at BFA, you had to keep up on not only gear and reputations and artifact power. In Dragonflight, it's really just like gear and reputation you can kind of catch up on with the help of this buff.
Yeah.
And then there's no artifact power.
Which is awesome. And even they, I mean, they eventually added those sort of catch ups to some of those systems. It's just you, by the time they did that, I felt like the system didn't matter, right? Or you were already sort of ingrained in like I wanting to grind this thing that
Yeah.
yeah, it was a little too late. So
Yeah.
but yeah, some good catch up systems. If you like to play multiple characters. Um so cool. So then I guess the only other final thing before we jump into some of the the more, I guess, impactful changes this week is there was raid testing this week on Friday. It was Primal Council and Krog Grim Totem. Um, I of course didn't do it. I was fortunately at work
Yeah.
late on Friday. I think you said you were busy, so you didn't get a chance
Yeah. People in my
to
guild did
participate.
it. I did not do it. It sounds like on Primal Council, it's still a fiesta, but they seem to have increased the amount of time it takes for you to spread your lightning debuff, which was a major problem before of like it came out. And if you were in melee, because you're a melee DPS, just
Hmm.
instantly spread to everybody around you, and then you all die. There's a little bit more of a grace period now. Um, and then I think they took the cleave off of the blizzard mechanic on
Okay,
on Primal Council. Um, and then on Grim Totem, I honestly couldn't tell you what changed because I didn't test the mythic version of that boss the first.
gotcha.
But I actually think so. I think the real reason that they tested both of these bosses was for tuning. If you look at what the bosses are, like pure single target. I don't think they really need help tuning. Like
Yeah.
they like a target dummy is good enough. Um, what these bosses are, Primal Council is sustained for target cleave.
Hmm.
Like it's just AoE all the time. And then Kura Grim Totem is kind of more similar to like the hectic ag cleave kind of style, where there's sometimes it adds up, sometimes not. You want to like priority kill some ads, and you can kind of just cleave others. So there's a lot more variability in image profile,
Hmm.
and it's in a lot of ways kind of maybe a catch-all. But like I think the real thing that they're doing here is actually just like getting data for tuning.
Makes sense. It makes sense.
And we'll get to maybe a
Um,
little bit of why they're doing some of that in a couple minutes because there's a fairly major change that we'll get to.
yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, so yeah, I think you had some of the same sentiments I heard. Didn't do the testing, but also heard that yeah, it was not too much had changed, I think, within the fights themselves.
Right.
But it's more mythic testing. We're getting closer and closer. Um so cool. So I guess moving into some of the more major beta changes this week or updates, however you want to look at it. There was a bunch of class changes. Major focuses, I mean major focus was elemental shaman, which got or sorry, enhancement, I guess, or shaman in general. Enhancement elemental got a ton of either increase or decreases depending. Enhancement was like minus 25% damage, just flat, which
Yeah,
is
just flat
a
in the aura,
great
just
great
25%
aura
damage off.
minus. Priest got a ton of changes across the board. Disc, Holy, and Shadow. Just I don't even know much about Priest, not to get into it, but their list is long and distinguished.
There is
Um,
one change for priest that like overrides all others, and that is that for discipline, evangelism's cooldown went to 3 minutes from 90 seconds. They doubled its cooldown, right? Um, and that's very
did they
significant.
revert this?
They did revert that. They
Okay,
reverted it and then applied other nerfs.
gotcha. Yeah, because I remember the waking up to this and seeing some of the priests that I
The
follow on Twitter.
priests in my guild were losing their minds
Yeah,
because
yeah.
evangelism is like core to how disc priest plays. It's like taking like the whole thing with disc priest is like they do their ramp and then they
Hmm.
do nothing until their next
Yep.
ramp, basically. And so their ramp is built around evangelism. And if evangelism goes from a 90-second cooldown to a 3-minute cooldown, that doesn't
Massive.
just reduce their throughput. It means that you're like you don't AFK. You do some healing, but it's not like very good healing. And then every 3 minutes, you have really, really, really good healing, like burst healing. Um, and actually, funnily enough, with evangelism being 3 minutes, they actually would have just been like shitty resto.
That's awesome. Um, but yeah, so tons of class changes, but the one I think we wanted to touch on a little bit closer to what we know more of is Windwalker Monk. So Windwalker Monk received a bunch of changes this week, and honestly, all of them were just damage reductions. So there was a ton of reduction just across the board of Windwalker damage. You know, name a spell and it probably got hit, including some of their cooldowns, like Storm, Earth, and Fire. Um, got its transfer reduced slightly. Invoke Zwin got its duration reduced. Um, Serenity got its increase reduced too. So lots of reductions in Windwalker. To be honest, I don't know exactly what this means. In my mind, they're now essentially an unplayable class, but I think
It is a
Babs and the team
13 point something percent damage reduction, is what it works
gotcha.
out to. Um, and I mean, obviously that hurts, but they'll
Yeah, that's
live.
what I figured.
They'll live. Um,
Yeah. Well, they were like the high, weren't they the highest damage melee like through most of testing? I
yes,
feel like. Yeah. Okay.
that's why they
So
got the 13% nerf. That's also why
yeah.
enhancement shaman got a nerf.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, yeah. One of my friends who's mostly a resto shaman was playing enhance and crushing like Mythic Plus even right now. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
that doesn't seem right. You're not that
Uh,
good of a DPS player.
just gotta get the hot hands. That's all you need.
Oh God,
That's what my
yeah.
enhancement shamans have told me. You just gotta get the hot hands. When you got the hot hands, everything like the world's your oyster.
That's fair. That's fair. But yeah, to like I guess so 30% nerf to Windwalker. But again, they were already, like we said, like some of the highest damage dealers on beta right now. So trying to bring everything in line, I think you'd expect to see something like this.
Yeah.
Um, so cool. The other thing is we are slowly getting, I think that this is the final dungeon, I
This is the
think.
final dungeon.
Yeah, so Temple of the Jade Serpent is available right now to test in Mythic Plus. Couple of boss and trash reworks along with this enablement. I have not done this dungeon in Mythic Plus. Did this dungeon a ton back in MOP when it was relevant, or not relevant, I guess, when it was the original
It
version
wasn't
of it.
relevant in
Uh,
MOP either.
is
Like,
this?
when did you do heroics for a MOP after you got your initials to the gear?
I don't know. There was dailies there, weren't there? There was a. It wasn't there a daily heroic quest?
For rep?
Yeah. Well, the bars go up, Emerson. The bars go up. There's always a
It
bar to
might
go up.
have given, like, justice or something.
I probably yeah, gave something weird. I don't know. I like to be completely honest with you, Temple was I enjoyed Temple, other than I don't know how to do the cauldron boss or like the boss you generally did second in that place.
Yeah,
Where you go through the library.
yeah.
Like I don't.
Well, the boss just, like, didn't have mechanics if you had people that were here, because they just killed it,
But it
right?
was the different every week, I felt like. There was like
Yeah,
different
it
things that
was.
happened. Yeah, okay, again, did not realize that for, like, most of the expansion,
Yeah, it just died.
that's true, that's
Um,
true.
I remember going through there, and the main issue being that you would just instantly trigger every stage of the RP.
Oh, yeah, it's
So
true.
you would just like sit there, you do like 10 seconds of damage, and then you would hit the next RP, and you just have to sit there and wait.
Yeah, but after that, like, the dragon boss was good, so, like, the one that would swap forms, that was
Yeah,
a fun boss,
yeah,
the 3rd boss, and then the last boss was cool too with, like, some of the it would, like, split, you have to damage your thing and kill it, and then you could help other people's kill their thing, I believe is the way
yeah,
it worked,
yeah. Fun
so
thing about the dragon boss, heavy magic damage. Come back to that. Heavy magic damage
nice.
on the tank.
Um, so Jade Serpent, Temple of Jade Serpent, I'm sorry, is available for Mythic Plus testing. This means that every dungeon, I don't know if they're all open right now. I haven't been on beta this weekend. But there are now at least every one of them has been enabled for at least some testing. So if you're a Mythic Plus player, get in there, test it out. Um, I feel like what I've been hearing is that all the old dungeons fairly not easy, but easier. All the new dungeons extremely difficult in terms of Mythic Plus scaling.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, I guess maybe week one you're hoping your keys roll old dungeons instead of new ones. Um, so, um, so cool. That's temples available. Go out, test it. It'll be fun. I guess here coming up next is probably the biggest thing. We'll spend a little bit of time on this one. Is Blizzard has made some changes. Notably, they've increased player stamina at level 70 by 40% and increased creature damage by the exact same amount, 40%. So basically, giving you a lot more health, made things do a lot more damage, but yet not increased the power of particularly healers and tanks, right? In this regard, I think mainly this will mostly hit on
The
healers.
impact on tanks is very uneven. Healers are the big like losers here, where like they just effectively do 40%. It's not. It's like 30% less healing.
Yeah.
Is math, but they effectively do 30% less healing. It's not ideal. For tanks, the impact is a lot more varied. If you look at something like Blood Decay, um, their primary mitigation is in two forms. They've got armor, but just a little bit. So that's not too big of a deal. They've got parry, which scales with damage intake, so that's fine. And then they've got Death Strike, which also scales with damage intake. And so they're all honestly they're cruising.
Hmm.
Um, but then you have something like a Protection Paladin, um, where their mitigation they've got a few different forms of like small passive DRs with stuff like Consecration, and Block, and then they've got their heals, so they're all based on their attack power, which is not getting scaled up by this, and actually got a nerf late in the beta. Um,
Hmm.
so that's one of those things where like they may have to go and undo those nerfs to Protection Paladin healing because it's not getting scaled up by this, and honestly, WoG kind of sucks now.
Yeah.
And then you have Brewmaster, which is in this very weird place, where like half of our heals are fine, but then two of the major sources of our incoming healing are not.
Hmm.
Specifically, like if you look at a Brewmaster's healing breakdown, there's probably in the top three spells there are going to be two. Celestial Fortune, which is when you get healed, you get an additional heal, basically. Um, but since the damage went up, but like the amount you're getting healed didn't go up, that effectively also eats the 30% nerf. Um, Gift of the Ox, you get one orb for every 100% of your HP you take in damage. That ended up not changing effectively at all, because we were taking 40% more damage, but now we have 40% more health, so it all like evens out.
Hmm.
Um, and the amount of healing per orb is based on your attack power. So that again, 30% nerf effectively.
Yeah.
But then we have stagger and dodge and purifying brew, that are all based on damage taken. Those are all fine. And then celestial brew, which is based on attack power and is
Yeah.
maybe not as fine. So it's like brewmaster's in a very weird space where like there's basically like two classes of tanks, right? There's ones that scale up with this without issue, like Blood DK. And
Hmm.
people are talking about like people put warrior in the other camp, but they're wrong. Uh, they're just wrong because they look at what you can see on the meter for a prot warrior, which is ignore pain, and ignore pain is not what makes warrior good. Not
Yeah.
even a little bit close to what makes warrior good. Crit block and block are what make a warrior good, and those scale up perfectly fine. Ignore pain is based on attack power and gets worse, but
Gotcha.
it's prot warrior is still going to like currently the best tank. Uh,
Love wars.
and then you've got the ones like there's a spectrum. There's the ones that are perfectly fine, and the ones that are very not
Yeah.
okay. And then in between, there's stuff like Brewmaster, where it's like Brewmaster got worse, but by how much? It's kind of hard to say. Like raid testing
Yeah.
is not open for us to like the raid testing on Friday. This is actually where I think a lot of the tuning stuff comes in. They were looking at healing numbers. I think more so than
Yeah.
damage numbers, healing numbers, damage intake numbers on tanks, um, and trying to figure that out. Brewmaster honestly seemed fine in that round of Mythic testing. Like,
Hmm.
Brewmaster deaths were not a problem in the raid testing that I saw.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, are they worse now than bringing a, Blood DK or Protection Warrior? Possibly. But they still bring 5% physical damage taken. So, got that
Need
going
one.
for them.
Yeah, so if you're raid buff, basically. Yeah, no, I think. I mean, they've. It's funny they've done this. They've done this a couple times before. I feel like they go back and do this sort of stamina thing every couple of expansions, if they're not doing like a full squish, right? Because I
Right.
think there's always this eventuality that power, like individual player power, meaning like your attack power, spell power, whatever it ends up being, right, always outscales your stamina gains to the point of
Yeah.
like, and they put this in the thing where it's like essentially it becomes if you're a healer particularly, it's essentially every damage event is a lethal damage event. So if someone isn't topped fully, they're dead, right? And so it becomes this sort of game of reactionary, like how quickly can you react to top someone after they take damage to ensure that the next damage event that comes in doesn't kill them, because that's really the only way to put pressure on healers
Yeah.
in like the grand scheme of things, right?
This is
um
like ICC kind of problem. Like in
yeah,
ICC, this was the damage profile. You were either full or you were dead. Um,
right.
and it was honestly just not very good.
Yeah, no, I mean, at that point, healers, like, the healing becomes just cooldown based, right? Because that's the
Yeah.
only way, like, to really pressure a healer, you have to do a bunch of damage to a large amount of players as quickly as possible. And to mitigate that, healers will use cooldown. So,
Yeah.
um, well, you're right. This is a general nerf to like your individual healing on a target. If we think about it in a more larger scheme, it's generally probably a good thing, right? In terms of like, there's no longer that sort of emergency need to top everyone at all times. It
Right.
becomes much more of a game of, as a healer, identifying who needs to be topped
Yeah.
and prioritizing them, and then letting your like, trickle heals heal other characters, right? Like whether
Yeah.
that's like your what's the I forget the shaman AoE, but it's like if whether that's your Flow and Hots on a druid, it's like renewing mist and things on your monk, things like that. You can slowly let players who are not in danger tick up based on this. But yeah, people are some healers are like really pissed. They're like, now we can't use like some of the monks like now we can't use Vivify because it doesn't top players anymore. It's like, well, it, you still use it because it's good, and like now you
Yeah.
just have to cast two of them instead of one of them, or even a
Yeah.
half of them in certain cases, right? If it crit,
Yeah.
um, it's a
It's
tough one.
so one of the things with this, if they don't change creature damage at all at level 70, then this doesn't do anything for the burstiness, right? Because the
Yeah,
damage went up by the same amount as your HP. But what this it basically is going to make it easier for them to have that kind of middle ground where some of the enemies are going to get nerfs. Where initially they're also going up by 40%, but by the time all the math is done and in the game, they're going to be going up by 25% or something like that.
yeah,
And like technically you can do that already. Like they didn't need to necessarily do it this way. They could do it other ways by like applying a blanket nerf to all healers by 30%. But you know, this headline
Yeah,
is a
that's
little bit more palatable, I think.
yeah. It also in general like doing it the reverse of like nerfing like in this case like healer power um across the board. It's just a lot like this is also a much cleaner way of doing that because like even just thinking about monks, like there is so much weird interconnectedness of certain spells that like
Yeah.
some of our healing isn't categorized as like a Mistweaver spell. So it's like if they just filter on that, like they
Yeah.
nerf everything but like one spell that happens
And
to be
then
like
that
super
one
overpowered, right?
spell just like warps everything around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like or it has the unintended consequences of like Mistweaver now got caught up in the Windwalker nerf to ancient teach or to teachings of the monastery. They changed the proc chance of that, and because the class skill it affects every piece of the class. So like now we reset Rising Sun Kick, whatever percent less. They've
Yeah.
changed the reset chance.
Brewmaster
Uh,
notably not affected by that because they did not give us teachings of monastery.
yeah, so it's well, yeah. It's funny that they didn't give you guys that. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, like, I think this is in my mind, like their goal, which they're very clear about, is like, look, we want to get rid of like spiky damage that needs to be like healed up immediately, and that creates like probably just they don't say this out loud, but it just creates unfun situations for healers.
Yeah.
Um, where like you literally know someone's about to die because you can't top them, but you're also focusing on like the four other people that are getting
Are about
healed,
to
right?
die. Yeah.
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 Um,
And there's also
so
like this is I guess another in the line of things that they've done over the past few years to make healing in raids less bursty. One of which,
yeah.
like if you look at the damage profile in Castle Nathria, it's pretty much all damage taken, right? It's all like if you look at blood price or something like that, you needed a cooldown for it to live it. Season
Hmm.
4 not so much, but in season 1 you definitely
Yeah.
or at least to live it consistently, because it was very much like if you didn't have a cooldown coming down from blood price, the next damage events would kill you.
Right.
Um, so now they've switched to using a lot more healing reductions, healing absorbs. You look at something like Sylvanas Veils or Rygolon's healing absorb, which a lot of DPS don't realize even exists.
Yeah. No, it's always fun
Um,
on that one.
and stuff like the healing absorbs on each other. Like they started using other things that require healing, but don't require like instantly topping people,
Right. Yeah.
because they can give you a healing absorb for your whole health bar, and that's fine. You still
Yeah.
have a long time before you die to other incidental damage. Whereas if they did something like the Final Fantasy style, like set everybody's HP to 1 kind of effect, and then
Yeah.
just like or healers, you have 5 seconds to save them. You know, that's very very
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. It's also like I'll tell you as a throughput healer, like playing monks or even like druids, right? Like though that damage profile never works out well because like at that point you want a class that has cooldowns that can burst up the rate. So it's your
Mystic
discs,
Priest.
yeah, or like your resto shaman with cloud burst and things like that. Was paladin for all. I don't know if paladin is that bursty anymore, but yeah, in any event, this is sort of I don't know if it's a good change, but it's a change they made. I think it makes sense based on the way they've sort of described why they're making it. They
Yeah,
just need to probably adjust scaling. Like, I don't
I think as on
know.
the tanking front, I think the big thing that they need to do now is they really just need to go back and they need to take a second look at some of the attack power based heals for tanks,
Hmm.
in particular like protection pellet.
Yeah,
That's one that I think is really an outlier right now. But then they also need to go and do a pass on magic damage, because the way that a
yeah,
lot of tanks dealt with magic damage before, like the kind of magic damage that's not just like you hit a cooldown and then it's over, the more consistent, like you get a magic dot, you know, or you have a mob in a dungeon that does magic auto attacks, um,
yeah.
that you can't necessarily just push a cooldown and have the cooldown up for the whole time that you're fighting that thing. But well, the way you dealt with it before is you got healed, and now
Hmm.
heals are 30% worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is definitely like a major brewmaster weakness right now, to the point that they could be entirely pushed out of the meta if there's some significant like constant magic damage in these dungeons or in raid.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so
Too bad. Yeah. It's always interesting to see when Blizzard makes these sort of larger scale changes, particularly this late, I'd say.
yeah,
In the old expansion cycle.
yeah,
Um, gotcha. So I don't know if you had anything else to talk about there. We can move to crafting orders, which
yes,
is an interesting change that they've made. Um, so yeah, so if you guys aren't familiar with crafting orders, it's a new system coming in Dragonflight. It essentially lets individuals post looking for a crafter to craft something for them, and like it's a but now it's in sort of like an auction house UI, so it's not sort of
right,
trade chat spamming anymore. You post up, hey, I want this enchant made, or I want this leather working recipe made, and a actual crafter can come in and make it for you, and you can tip them. You can provide, well, you used to be able to provide some of the reagents.
now you have to provide
The
all of them.
craft Yeah, so I think that's the biggest change they made, is that essentially any of the required, or like what do they use? Like the basic reagents. So anything that's like not BOP or not one of the additional reagents that modifies something, but any of the basic ones, like if you needed 12 cloth and like 2 leather, you as the requester would have to provide that
Yeah,
on your work order for it to be made.
this is basically like it means that you have to do, if you were to go to post in trade chat, it would be like looking for a crafter with X recipe my mats, right?
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
you can't do your mats anymore.
Hmm.
For public ones only. As a refresher, there are three different kinds of crafting orders. There are public ones, which are just out on the auction house, anybody can fill them. And then there are guild ones, which are open to anyone in your guild, so you can just like put them in there. There are no restrictions on those. You can do a
Yeah.
partial fill for those and just like throw the mats you have in, and then your guild crafters can take from the guild bank or however you're doing it, and put them there. And then there are, I don't know, private ones, personal ones that you can submit to individuals,
Yeah. Private orders, I think they call them.
that also don't have this restriction of having to have
The common
having to,
reagents,
oh yeah, all the basic reagents covered, which is like that in particular is good because like we have two guilds, an alliance one and the horde one.
hmm
This means that the alliance characters can do personal requests to the horde crafters and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is which is good. I think the other change too, I don't think we talked about this. Or sorry, I guess in terms of like the way that this works too, I think the other what they were what Blizzard's reasoning here for this too, about needing to provide all the basic reagents to post a work order, is essentially to streamline or simplify, as a person who is going to do this crafting, how much to charge someone to do
Yeah,
it. Right. So like if they provided only like 5 of the 10 basic reagents you needed, then you'd have to figure out, all right, what's the difference in those 5 additional I have to provide to
yeah,
fill it? Then I have to do like a tip, like some sort of commission on top because I'm doing it for them.
yeah,
Do I do it more now because I'm going out to get some of my reagents? So not only do I charge them the reagent cost, but also like an increased commission because I'm having to do some work versus just clicking a button.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, so Blizzard did this. I think their reasoning was, at least for the public ones, to streamline the commissioning process for the person who's going to craft. You can sort of set, hey, I'll always charge you X number, X amount of gold to craft this thing.
This does a lot to simplify their auto commission thing. Where like right
Hmm.
now, if you submit a public order for an item, um, and somebody else has a public order for the item, your order just becomes that plus one as the default commission,
Yep.
um, which then puts yours at the top of the list. Yada yada yada. Very streamlined, very easy to use. The alternative, they can't really determine the commission price automatically because of the variable amount of resources. And the commission thing is the kind of thing that, if you're submitting personal orders to somebody, you talk with them and you figure out what the commission is, and then you just type that number. You don't need
Yeah.
the overall number. And the same thing with like guild stuff, you probably just don't do a commission. Like depending on how your
Yeah.
guild is structured. Like for us, if we have a guild crafter, there's not going to be a commission.
Yeah, no. Like we typically like we'll like I currently like I maintain I actually need to do this. But I do all like the enchanting stuff. So
Yeah,
like any of the enchanting mats, I just post in like put into a guild tab today
yeah,
and make it like people just grab them when they need them. So I just make sure that they're somewhat filled.
yeah.
Um, which I have to do actually. Maybe I'll do that. But yeah, good. We'll say like maybe just a streamline change. I don't know if good, bad. It just sort of makes it a little bit easier for those
Yeah.
public work orders. The other thing I don't think we talked about around crafting is that they did put a limit to the number of work orders you can post. Um,
That
in
limit has
last week's
existed
build.
for a while. It
Oh,
existed
has it?
prior to
Okay,
that. It just wasn't like public. It,
gotcha.
it it would like prevent you from filling more, but it
hmm
wasn't like documented.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it looks like you can only fill 30 total, and then you get 10 additional per day.
Yeah.
Is the way it works. So like the max is 30, and then you'll get 10 additional every day. So if you use up all 30 in one day, you can only do 10 the next day, basically. Um,
Yeah, and I think we actually might have talked about this before, but it's just a simple anti-monopoly thing. Like
yeah.
it means that somebody with a powerful add-on like TSM can't just sit there and like fill every order as it comes in and not let anybody else fill orders. This is very much like a protection for the more casual players to make sure that if you want to get on and you want to like do a little bit of crafting and fill a couple of orders, you will have the like there will be orders.
Yeah. Yeah. There'll be orders out there. Yep. No, of course. Of course. Yeah, we might have. I don't remember specifically talking
Yeah,
about that.
I
So,
think it came up in some
um,
other discussion. Another actually
gotcha.
crafting related thing that we did not put in the notes that I just now remembered. They did a pass on all of the racials.
They did?
Yeah. Um,
I missed this then.
because
My
all
fault.
of the racials effectively give you a bonus crafting skill, which translates into like improved ability to like get craft higher quality stuff, right?
hmm
Um, and so they basically it looks like normalized them all down to like 5 skill points, where before
Okay.
some of them were 10 or 15. And like 15 skill points is a lot of skill points.
Of yeah.
So looks like they've mostly normalized it down to 5. I don't have the exact numbers. I don't even know if there's a WoW post. I just like
Interesting.
kind of got noticed by people in my guild who were looking at profession stuff. They're like, "Huh, didn't this used to be X skill points and now it's
Yeah, yeah.
Y?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, it did."
That's crazy. I did
Um,
not realize that. Yeah.
so for reference, it's stuff like Blood Elves have, I think, enchanting.
Yep.
Uh, Draenei have tool crafting.
hmm
Uh, Pandaren have cooking. Dwarves have engineering, or is it gnomes with engineering and dwarves have blacksmithing?
Gnomes are engineering, dwarves are blacksmithing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Tauren have their like gathering one.
Yeah, they have the herbing one. Herbalism.
Yeah.
The herbing one.
Uh,
Um
and like there's a few more scattered around. Like goblins also have engineering.
mhm.
And so they weren't. They just like it didn't matter that they weren't balanced because all they were before was how quickly you could stop doing the
Right.
crafting that was just for skill points and switch to doing crafting for actual sales.
Yeah, like items, stuff like that. Yep.
But a permanent like skill bonus to crafting would actually be significant here because of how it would warp kind of like how reliably you could do like a 5-star recipe.
Yeah. 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 So now it's much more important. That's interesting. I didn't realize they made that pass. So yeah, professions are something that like I feel like I don't know.
I don't think I'm actually pulling up the Pandaren
Yeah.
racials. All right, that's not.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Oh yeah, Gourmand. Your cooking skill is increased. The Wowhead guide actually still has 15 in it, and it actually still gives 15 for all of the like sub skills from the farm. But
Okay.
in patch 6.0.1, there was a formatting change to change it, like just the text of it. But it's been cooking skill increased by 15 since mop.
Oh wow.
And then in build 10.0.2, your cooking skill is increased by 5.
Gotcha. So they normalize it all down. Interesting. Good on old Blizzard. Making professions matter again.
I'm actually I'm excited. Like I'm gonna have to actually level my hunter because my hunter was the like main crafter that I had for a long time, where I had like alchemy and inscription on that. I did a whole
Yeah.
bunch of glyphs and stuff in Cataclysm and had a grand old time doing that. And the glyph market is an enormous pain in the ass, so I quit doing that because like it turns out having to manage an inventory of like 300 different items is a huge
Oh,
pain.
it's fun.
Huge pain. Huge. Oh, plus milling. It's not like at least with transmog you maintain an inventory of like 1,000 items, but you don't have to do anything with it. You just relist them all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
Glyphs, you have all of the bulk, like inventory bulk of transmog, and the low sale rate of transmog, but also you have to sit there AFK milling for an hour to be able to do your crafting.
To make any of them. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, which is another thing that's getting fixed, but that's like we're off topic now. But yeah, I'm excited about it. Like my I'm gonna have to level my hunter to pick those up. My
Hmm.
monk is probably going to be like it's either gonna depend on material prices. It's either gonna be like leatherworking, skinning, and cooking,
Yeah.
uh, or it's gonna be herbalism and leatherworking. Like if leather is just dirt cheap, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And then like I don't know, I'll probably end up leveling several characters during the like 2 week lull before Mythic Plus and Raid opens,
Yeah.
and we'll see what things look like there.
All right, yeah, we should maybe like the week before Mythic opens up, we should take a tally of if I've leveled more than one character and if maybe
Yeah,
you've leveled all yours and what's happened. We'll see.
yeah.
We'll see what happens. So, all right, cool. I guess a couple, only like one or two more things. Just one thing actually on our notes we didn't touch on that I don't want to talk about. But before we get there, Blizzard did release some information about the upcoming Creation Catalyst or the Dragonflight version of the Creation Catalyst. They're just calling it the Catalyst now. Um, and so the Catalyst is coming back. If you guys, I guess it should be familiar. If you're not, Creation Catalyst allows you to essentially transmute a piece of gear into a tier piece, or into some level of a tier piece. And so you can take a piece from Dragonflight Season One. If it's not a tier piece, transmute it into a tier piece once the Catalyst opens up. And so they've talked about how you actually gain um, charges or currency to do this. So first off, there isn't a new currency, so you're not going to need to farm the new Cosmic Flux version Dragonflight.
Mhm.
Um, what you will have are just charges, and so you gain these charges by essentially completing a quest once a week. And when you complete that quest, which requires you to do some sort of group content that is seasonally appropriate, which generally probably means doing the raid, doing Mythic Plus, or doing PvP in that season, you will gain one charge. And that one charge is also applied to any current and future characters on your account,
Yep.
which means you do it once on your main, and then your alts have all one charge, and then your alts that you'll create later will all have one charge. It seems like though there is a slight catch up is once you've done it 3 times on your main character, any new alt that reaches level 70 automatically has charges
Yeah.
available,
And
which is a great like catch up change, I'd say.
yeah, this is a good change. It is capped at 6. You can only have 6 charges banked at one time.
Yeah.
So there was a big discussion in my guild about this because
Oh,
I was like glass half full. This means that I don't run out of Cosmic Flux trying to gear up my alts,
yes.
which is actually a thing that has happened to me repeatedly.
Nice.
Like just because you need like 6,000 flux to do or more. It's like 8,000 flux or something for your tier set. Then you need a bunch for your double legendaries. You need another like if you're buying the packages from the vendor, you need like
Or
8,000 for those. So you're looking at 16,000 flux for a fresh alt. And then if you want to go and get condos too, that's another 10,000. So you're at like 26,000 flux for an alt, and
a
that's a
lot.
lot. Yeah, I mean, flux comes pretty easy, but also 26,000 is a big number.
So it's a lot of Zereth Mortis, a lot of staying in there.
Um,
Uh
And like I had actually been using, I had been like constantly while I was playing my mage in season, like shifting gear pieces around, and like so that meant a lot of
Mhm.
recatalyzing. There were like two different tier setups that I had for different legendaries and all this stuff. So
Jeez.
I had a bunch of like I was spending cosmic flux all the time. I did not
Yeah.
have very much banked. So then when I had to reroll back to monk, um, which was not something that I had actually planned to do, so I hadn't actually banked any cosmic flux. I had spent it all on my alts
Nice.
because
Yeah,
I
the
like
ulti you were
geared up my hunter and spent some on my warlock and spent some on my DK, and it's like okay, now I'm playing monk again and I have none.
yeah. Yeah.
So
No,
this means that you don't have to worry about that anymore. You're not going to run out of cosmic flux from playing too many alts.
right.
It does
Yeah.
limit your ability to just like there's a little bit of like if you start an alt and you upgrade a piece or convert a piece in the catalyst and then you get another piece in that slot at the same eye level, now maybe you have to stop and think, do I do the conversion or do I wait?
You yes, but I feel it sounds like the way that it's happening is that's only really that question mark is only really applicable like within the first 3 weeks. Right,
Yeah,
because after that, any new alt that you get up there will have 3 charges, so, like,
you'll
if
have
that
six
ends up
charges even like because it's all account wide.
well, like, I mean, like, 3 weeks in, so you would have
Yeah,
gotten
yeah,
3 charges,
right.
like
But like the idea is like okay, so you're gearing up your alt and you want to make tier on it, and you have more than four charges, so you know you can just use four charges on four different slots and get your tier set.
mhm,
But then it's like, well, do you upgrade the lowest eye level piece that you get, or do you sit on it and wait and see if you get a higher eye level piece to do the conversion on? You can't like do it all twice. If you do a normal run and you get tier pieces, and
yeah,
then or you do dungeons and you get tier pieces, and then you go and do normal. Like if you spent all your charges on your dungeon gear, you can't necessarily convert like the off pieces from raid.
right, and that's sort of, I guess, the one downfall is because if you this wasn't alt and you had enough cosmic flux
Right.
banked in, like, the current thing, you
You
could
could
end up
just
rerolling
spend
as
it.
many as times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's definitely pros and cons to this.
Yeah.
I personally like this idea better in
I
that
agree.
it for those situations where you're playing a new alt and you get a bunch of gear and then you upgrade that gear and then an hour or two later, maybe a day or two later, before the next reset, basically,
Right.
you get upgrades in those same slots. That sucks. But on the flip side, it's much nicer than saying, hey, I just hit level 70 on this new alt
Let
and
me
I only
go
have 1,000
funnel.
cosmic flux,
Yeah.
right?
Let me go
This
do
alt's
Zareth Mortis
screwed.
treasures on like my eight other alts that have just been hanging out at level 60 and never set foot in the zone just to get
Yeah,
some easy flux. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I
yes.
I think they each have different pros and cons, right? Where like this I think is better if you're playing a bunch of alts because
Hmm.
that's the scenario that you run out of cosmic flux in. When you're
Right.
spending 20 or 30,000 cosmic flux per character, you run out very quickly even if you have, 150,000 or 200,000 cosmic flux that you've gained to
Yeah,
time. Um
yeah.
with this, like every character has its own charges. You have six per alt no matter how many alts.
Hmm.
But Cosmic Flux is better if you're playing like one alt. Because then it's still functionally infinite for your main and your alt.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I I am glad that there is no Cosmic Flux equivalent. That I think is just a universal like good. Like
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Farmable currency is it's for certain things I'm okay with it. For other things, it just is annoying,
yeah,
right?
and this was
Um,
definitely an annoying case. It wasn't like hard
yeah.
to get. It was tedious to get, but if you've played the game the whole patch, you just had a ton of it. Unless you had like me spent it all on your 37th.
Uh, yeah. Like I think my druid was my third alt I spent flux on. And so I'm now out of it, I'll say, or like extremely low. Like I couldn't get another character to
Right.
60 and like get legendaries and get a bunch of stuff for
Yeah.
it without doing
Yeah.
more daily. So, which means it's not going to happen. So yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of this change just in general. It also means that like I don't have to care about the system too much. I'm just going to naturally get it as long as I just remember to
Yeah.
pick up the quest.
I need to
at the start of
check.
the
I
week.
hope that this quest is like the push kind of quest, like the faded quests were for Dinar, where like you entered the zone and it gave you the quest.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
that,
I haven't checked
like,
that.
I know I'm going to like do a dungeon, forget to have picked up the quest, right? So being
Yeah.
able to just like get the quest progress for free because it pushed it into my quest log, so I
Hmm.
couldn't forget it. That's how I hope it works. I don't think we have confirmation how it works yet, but that's how I'm hoping.
Yeah, yeah. I hope too. It's a cross activity, meaning like you don't only have to do Mythic plus like dungeons, or you don't only have to do raids. You can like get
Yeah,
progress doing both.
they'll
So
probably do like it'll probably be like a Philibbar style quest where like
yeah,
killing a raid boss gives you 33% and doing a dungeon gives you 25%. An arena match gives you 10% or something.
yeah, yeah. That'd be nice. So cool. Yeah, new catalyst, I guess, usage system that's going in place. Seems good.
Yeah.
Seems like a decent change going in old Dragonflight. So the only other final thing, which wasn't on the notes, but it literally just started this morning, is the World of Warcraft's 18th anniversary event is live. So if you want to get your, I don't know, you can kill Doomlord Kazakh or something in Caverns of Time, and yeah, you can do some world bosses. Great. Biggest thing is you get the item that gives you increased reputation and experience gains. So get that if you're gonna level anything. I think it lasts up until
It lasts
okay,
until Dragonflight launch.
yeah.
They moved up Darkmoon Fair,
Yeah,
which is
it's all day.
also active starting now, I believe, or starting this week. They moved it up so that it wouldn't overlap uh, with Dragonflight release. You couldn't carry these like 40-50% XP buffs into the first week of Dragonflight leveling. Because you do also, again, need to complete the campaign to fully unlock everything. So
Yeah.
being level 70 and still having 2/3 of the campaign to do would maybe not be ideal.
Yeah, it's a little, yeah, a little off there for sure. But no, that is live. You get your firework, I guess, or firework. You can do Caverns of Time is a bunch of like, I'll say dumb mini games, but it's like not, they're not really dumb. They're just like things to do that are
Yeah,
WoW themed. They do it every year basically.
yeah,
But yeah, it's the 18th anniversary of WoW, which is crazy. In 18 years. So
yeah,
I feel old, dude. I feel very old.
yeah.
Uh
World of Warcraft is now capable of voting in the United States. Not of
Shoot,
drinking though. It can't get the driver's
close.
license though. And in certain states, it can get a pilot's license.
Oh, very interesting. Interesting. Look at that. All grown up.
All
A
grown up.
little baby game is now a
Yep.
young adult.
Yep. Yep.
Scary. Um,
Don't ask it what its major is yet.
yeah, no, I think it's still picking that. But yeah, so that was, I think that was it then for today. Like I said, not like we said at the start, like not a ton of crazy new stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
the damage or the health changes were big. The catalyst, I think, is an interesting change. But I think the goal is for the next couple weeks is to really do a little bit of course, cover anything new that comes in beta. I think a lot of it's going to be focused on bug fixes and just making the game playable. I know that there are
Yeah.
still talents that Mistweaver has that don't work.
There's class talents
So
for
yeah,
for monk in general that don't work. Like the avoidance one still gives 4% avoidance of your current avoidance rating. So if you have
yeah.
1% avoidance from rating right now, you take that talent and you go to 1.04%.
Just, ugh, so dumb. And then I think the save them all for
Yeah.
monk for on that side of it isn't working. The healing increase one at all. So yeah, it's a bug fix time, I'd say. For the next couple weeks. But I think the reason I bring it up is we think we're going to do a couple of retrospectives, like we mentioned a couple
Yeah.
times. So starting with Nathria and those sort of 9.0 and 9.0.5 patches, and then sort of work our way through.
You know what's
Sort of
crazy?
reminiscing. What's up?
Valor released in 9.0.5.
Valor upgrades did?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna have to go back and
It's
figure
gonna
out what was in
be
each
yeah.
patch.
We're gonna talk all about
Yeah, what was
that
in and what
next
wasn't
week.
in. Yeah,
Because I know there's gonna be things that like we just take for granted now, and at that time is like
yeah,
big news.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So,
But yeah, I think that is going to be it for today's show. Thank you all for watching and or listening. And if you enjoyed this podcast and you want to support all the work that we do at the Peak of Serenity, you can do that over at our Patreon at patreon.com/Peak of Serenity. And of course, come and join the Discord. It is the best place to come and learn how big the Windwalker Nerfs actually are, among others.
exactly.
Or maybe get a list of all the talents that you shouldn't take because they literally don't work.
Another good list.
But that is it for the show today. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.